welcome everybody. My name's Maralee Burnett. I am your astrologer, back with the messages for the week of February 9th, where things are really starting to shift and get us ready for that exciting new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Aquarius. So hold on to your hats because the energy this week is continuing to be really intense as we watch the light of the moon drain down, and hope that that means the energy is coming down a little bit as well. But probably not quite yet. So hopefully you've been following me. If not, now would be a really good time to click on that subscribe button so that you're notified every time I create new content. And go out to my website, maraleeburnett.com. Out there you have access to all the written content that I create to help you prepare day to day with the monthly horoscope. And of course, with the full moon and new moon articles, I have weekly updates and doing all I can with all my free content to help you prepare for this big, magnificent 1 year ahead that is really about to kick off once we get to that new moon solar eclipse. But that doesn't mean we don't have a lot of exciting things happening this week as we get prepared. And so we're going to dive right in, take a look at that. Of course, this is my Astro Gold software where we break it down day by day, taking a look at and focusing in on the most intense energies that are going on, or at least that I want to focus on in the week ahead to help you prepare. And so here on Monday, February 9th, we are beginning the week with a bit of pressure. And that comes from this T-square, what I like to call a mountain, maybe a bit of a volcanic eruption happening on Monday. Somebody's going to blow their top. That somebody could be a woman or groups of women that have had enough and are fed up. Right as Venus sits at the 29th degree of Aquarius. So as planets hit 29 degrees, it's the end of the work. There's a critical moment, something that can feel like a crisis, a test of what you've been covering in the last 3 weeks from Venus's perspective, that she's been moving through the sign of Aquarius. And it's Sunday, Monday here that Venus has also been touching off on the eclipse energy. So it's a preview. We saw it last week from Mercury's perspective, an idea or information that crossed your path last week, Thursday, Friday, that has something to do, and you may not realize it yet, but as we get to the eclipse energy, you're going to become aware of details or information that were meant to help you prepare for what you need to eclipse out of your life and let go of. So now it's Venus's turn. Venus is showing up with things that have to do with love and beauty and money and the things that we value, the material things that we want and we desire. It can be the money you make, your job. But in the sign of Aquarius, it also has to do with the groups that you're a part of, your friend groups. There could be conflict within your friend groups on Monday from this T-square that's created from Uranus, now moving forward very slowly in the sign of Taurus, and the moon down here in Scorpio. So Scorpio, the things that we can't see but we know exist, and it's very intense here in the underworld of Scorpio versus the material world of Taurus. So there's something at conflict here. And these women have something to do with dissolving, or are the receiver of the conflict here, which Scorpio is sex. Uranus is money. Uranus is old men's money. And these young women are challenging them in some way. So Monday can be a rather emotional, explosive day, but it's, also the end of some work that we've been doing. And there's some big conclusion today, some fireworks that are going to kick off the week for us, all while Saturn is winding down its time and its energy. So last week we saw Saturn first enter 29 degrees of Pisces. So this is the end of the last 3 years of work you've been doing, working on your health, working on your spirituality, working on your healthy boundaries, whatever the work has been that you've been doing. Again, 29 degrees, it feels like a crisis. It's very intense. And you want to pass the test and be ready to move on, because we don't have to deal with this Saturn energy in the sign of Pisces for another 29 years. So that's good news. And of course, we had Neptune move on into the sign of Aries. So we're starting to feel that shift as well. So we're going to keep an eye on that. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more as this week progresses as well. But expect a bit of intensity as we feel the 29 degrees of Saturn and Aquarius energy showing up for us somewhere in our life today. So let's move on to Tuesday. So here on Tuesday, we now see Venus has moved on into the sign of Pisces, which she's much happier here. This is light and joyful and loving energy, more focused on happiness and joy for the individual, creativity and beauty, right? Topics that Venus herself appreciates is what we get with this Piscean energy. Aquarius is more, Venus's energy gets a little lost because she's one amongst the many, where Venus likes to be in the spotlight. And so now over the next 3 weeks, we can feel much more emotional, much more creative, much more artistic. Music can be soothing to the soul over the next 3 weeks. So can art, anything that you're doing creatively and spiritually. That can be the focus for these next 3 weeks with the help of Venus's energy here for us. So what both Venus and Mercury are helping us discover is what life can be like now that we did the work. Now, of course, we've still got Saturn here going, no, you got a couple more days. You got to prove yourself. But what these personal planets like Mercury and Venus do is show up in our new world, our new day-to-day life, and what it looks like now that we have done the work and let the things go that need to go. And we have another T-square with the moon today. So the moon on its journey to the eclipse is pushing us to do some hard emotional work along the way. And today, while it's in the sign of Sagittarius, it is facing off with the nodes of fate and destiny, and Mercury sitting there in Pisces as well. So it's challenging us because the moon in Sagittarius wants to go, go, go. The moon in Sagittarius just wants to go, wants to have fun, wants to have an adventure. And here we still have to do the work, right? As it's meeting with the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo, it's saying, slow down a minute. Don't forget what you are supposed to be working on and not just out having fun. So it's not a long, intense T-square, but it is something that shows up in our purview today that makes us pause. Something makes us pause while we're running along at breakneck speed, and suddenly we have to slow down and tune in to our intuition. Something's trying to call our attention as we head into Tuesday. And then as we move along to Wednesday, we have a couple of big energies showing up today. First one is we see the sun, of course, in the sign of Aquarius, and it is making a sextile here to Chiron in Aries. So there is the sun shining a light on our friend groups, our networking groups, and it makes this nice connection over to a healer of some kind. So there could be a moment in time where you were searching for help and finally a friend says something offhandedly that leads you to this person that can help you heal. One of the many ways that this can show up. So the sun's where we feel successful. Right now we feel successful amongst our friends, and it just is highlighting our friend groups. I don't know about you, but last week I had so many get-togethers and I always kind of giggle to myself when the energy shows up like that and I see a repeating pattern. But that was mine last week, was this energy of the sun in Aquarius was like friends, friends, friends. And then so where I live, people tend to come into town and then it's always, hey, let's get together, which I love because it breaks up my day-to-day routine. But that was for me last week. This happened to be in this area of my chart where it was bringing a lot of people to me to hang out with, right? So there's something again in your friend groups this week, and Chiron is that wounded healer that maybe you're helping a friend heal, maybe a friend's helping you heal, maybe you're coming together to put a business together that has to do with healing, all kinds of fun possibilities. And then that moon energy lends a hand as it speaks in harmony this time with Chiron and the sun. So again, paying attention to the inner guidance that you're getting, which should be really big because Sagittarius expands things and helps us move forward. So there is a good, happy feeling as we head into Wednesday as far as that sun's energy and perspective go. Then we've got Mercury in the sign of Pisces at the pre-shadow point. So from this point forward until I think it's the 26th of February, we will see what we need to see. And then we're going to have to dig in and do the work. So at this point, Mercury's here with the North Node opposing the South Node. So it's also activating the lessons and the work that we're supposed to be doing, right? Every time the nodes shift signs, the collective is doing work. We are growing into the North Node. We are leaving behind the South Node. We are growing into our faith. We're letting go of control. And with Mercury's help, we're learning what it is that we are supposed to be doing at this juncture of the work. So the nodes move backwards from 29 to 0. From the 9 to 0 is the last decan of the work that we have to do. So between now and July, this is it. This is the final work that we're going to do. And then we're really going to dig in and do the work between Leo and Aquarius. But for now, we won't go there yet. We are doing some fated lessons, fated learning, opening our minds to what we need to do and learn and show up and participate in these fated lessons. So that's the nodes. It's our fate and destiny. And we are learning how to head to our northern light because Mercury's sitting here with the North Node. And the South Node shows us what we've already learned, the skills we already have, and what we need to move away from that's toxic, that's unhealthy for us, and how faith helps us heal as well. So there's a lot about healing and health, maybe health of our children with that Mercury influence. That kicks off today. And like I said, moves forward till the 26th, and then the retrograde begins where we have to review it. So if you're somebody who's a creative, artistic person, teacher, taking a class that has to do with religion, there's something that you want to focus on more intensely with more purpose over the next 3 weeks. And maybe you're creating a new course on spirituality. And then when Mercury goes retrograde, that's when you want to go through it and you want to do all the edits and maybe you've already created something and you want to refresh it and reintroduce it to people, then this would be the time where, again, you would bring it back to life. You would go recreate it in some way once the retrograde starts. So what you're doing now around the 11th and the 12th is starting to tune in to the big ideas that are coming in that will motivate you and move you in a particular direction that you're going to really dig in and do the work on. Now, this will be more impactful, I would say, if you have planets at 8-9 degrees of Pisces or Virgo specifically, because you'll feel it more as a calling. This is important work. Any of your planets that you have are 8 or 9 degrees, like they will get a shot of inspiration. And depending on the angle and the connection that this event makes to your personal planet, that is what affects the experience. So if you haven't done it, you might download my annual worksheet, because in it, I give you all these little shortcuts and astrology lessons and these angles of squares and sextiles and oppositions. There's a little piece in there for that as well to help you know, hey, here's how this energy is going to feel, and here's what you want to do to work with it. So it's out there. Links down below here too for you to look at later and download. Something faded, lessons, things that we need to learn, learning and getting the information that we need, right? That maybe it's been hidden, a truth that we have to face. Those are all the things that are going to start and kick off for us on Wednesday. And then we're going to head into Thursday. And each day this week, as Saturn gets closer and closer to the end of its time in Pisces, it is going to pick that energy up, and it is going to, continue to feel more intense. But just know you're almost there. Don't give up. Hold those boundaries. There will be people trying to test your boundaries, but don't give in. Now, we have more tests with this Mars in Aquarius energy. So this is also the energy that kicks in and makes our friend groups much more active, because that's what Mars does. It motivates us, it creates movement, it creates action. And in the sign of Aquarius, this is also why we're seeing so many groups protesting. So this will continue. We're at about the halfway mark of those protests, and they will have some kind of an energy infusion today for some reason. That reason being Jupiter sending some energy, sending some teaching, some lessons, but not directly. Like it's an unusual influence on Mars that shows up for us on Thursday. So if you have planets in these 16 degrees, you will notice you may be taking unexpected actions that don't quite make sense, but do it anyway, because Jupiter is that gentle giant that's teaching us something about the past while it is here in the sign of Cancer. That has to do with self-care, with caring for other people, nurturing them, food. There was a story today about Germany, I think, and having way too many potatoes. And instead of just throwing excess food away, they were doing the right thing, Jupiter, and giving it away to people, and restaurants were participating and coming up with creative new entrees with potatoes, and all the food banks, whoever needed it, right? Instead of just trashing, which is so wasteful, food, it was being used for good. So it's those kinds of potentials that we have as far as our food as a resource. We should be getting more creative and taking action to take care of those in need of food. So something along those lines is going to show up in the energy today as well. And so if you're inspired to do something unusual or different about food and caring for someone or providing shelter for someone, do it. It'll turn out really well in the end. So that is what we see on Thursday. And then as we head into Friday the 13th, dun dun dun, happy Friday the 13th. I find this energy actually to be very positive and supportive. 13, the divine feminine. It's a good luck day as long as that's your perspective. But it's also a little bit of a challenging day for us. So we'll see if there's any horrors as Saturn has now moved into the sign of Aries on Friday the 13th. So you can't make this stuff up, but that's it. This is it. We're done with Saturn in Pisces. The lessons hopefully are learned. The boundaries are set. You're letting go of all the toxicity. And if not, the nodes are going to help you finish all of that work off between now and July. But this is the reset moment. So Saturn, like I said, takes about 3 years to move through a sign, and it takes 29 years to come back to the sign and hopefully elevate the work that you've been doing. So first Saturn comes in like it did last year and starts tearing down structures like changes in leadership roles, and then rebuilds those structures back up stronger than they were before. And so we've seen some changeover in leadership roles where they're, again, stronger than who they replaced. And we will continue to see more of that because now Neptune dissolves false identities. It dissolves leaders that are not leading the way they should. And then Saturn comes through here again, destroys what is not supporting you as the individual, and then helps you rebuild stronger. 0 degrees of Aries is the world. It's the reset moment, right? This is the birth of the zodiac. This is where it all begins. This is like our Big Bang Theory, right? It's like, boom, 0 of Aries, and everything starts fresh and new. And Saturn isn't strong in the sign of Aries. So Saturn can be a little petulant over the next 3 years and does not like being rushed. Mars rules Aries. Mars wants things to go fast. This is fire. Let's go. Let's fire up the individuals. And what Saturn comes in here and does is say, yeah, let's fire them up, but with purpose. Neptune. You can't just run off half-cocked and slatter and kill everybody, Mars, just because, right? There's a need for purpose. There's a need for structure, restriction, and that will help you succeed as an individual. That will help you understand who you are. That will help you understand how to actually create your dreams or understand your dreams. This is not something that just happens overnight. This is something that takes time to fully develop. So this week, we're introduced to what's possible. And it's a revisit of last year when both Neptune and Saturn dipped in briefly to Aries and then backtracked out because we have things we had to finish first, the Pisces work, before our actual new beginning can happen. But now it's time. This week, you should have finished the last of whatever you had to finish so that your own new beginning can happen for you. Wherever this house is that you have 0 Aries, that's where the energy of the reset is showing up for you. And that house introduces a new concept in your life. Now, it won't be until next week that we have the Big Bang. But this week, the spark is lit. The fuse is starting to burn. And it's a slow burn, right? Saturn wants things to be a slow burn in Aries. And then there's a big explosion right after that solar eclipse, which is also going to be a little wild and crazy. So this is the time to show up, pay attention to yourself, take care of yourself, make yourself a priority. And I can't remember if I told you my little silly take on Taylor Swift's song last week, but I'll repeat it for those that were here or those that haven't heard this yet. But I always say to people when I screw up that I'm the problem, it's me. I'm like, yep, once again, I'm the problem, it's me, from her song, of course. But I began hearing that change slightly as soon as Neptune went into Aries, and I started hearing, I'm the priority, it's me. And that's literally what this energy of Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries is saying. Make yourself the priority. No, it is not selfish to make sure that you take care of yourself. That's good self-care. Now, if you do it at the expense of other people, that's where you're being selfish. But just taking care of yourself, that's the minimum of what you should be doing. So Neptune will dissolve the things that get in the way of you expressing your own identity, who you are, what you want, what you're passionate about. And then Saturn will give you the rules, give you the structure that you need in order to become this person. That takes time over the next 3 years to fully develop. But the big bang of what's possible is what's coming in this week ahead that could literally shift and change your entire world and identity, especially you early degree Aries people. This is a big wake up call for you. And you should go into this energy willing to change everything. It's big. It's intense for a reason. So we're just starting to see what's possible here on Friday the 13th, which hopefully isn't scary. But it is time to change. Now, if you're this person in particular, a Leo rising, they have this energy in their 8th house. And this is a whole rebirth and transformation. You may not recognize yourself once this event happens and this energy starts showing up for you. So anything is possible now. The new world order is coming, and that's what's possible now. Let us move ahead to Saturday. So here on Saturday, right, these two are just going to slowly keep moving closer together. That's not a big change. But what is starting to show up in this undercurrent of pressure, of instability, of surprise and shocks that will follow us through the eclipse next week, it starts showing itself because of the fact that that sun in Aquarius is squaring off with Uranus in Taurus. Now, Uranus has been shaking up the financial markets ever since it slowed down and started to go direct. So we saw a big drop one day, then we saw a big swing back the next day. Uranus is innovative money, so Bitcoin down the tube. If it's not real, it's going to disappear. So all the things that are going on in Bitcoin that aren't above the table, all that stuff is going to disappear. So hopefully you're not one of those people that's messed around in that. And I would say over the next week, because of this energy between now and that new eclipse, write it out, right? Because if you panicked and sold and then the market recovered and rebounded even better the following day, then you lost out. So it is time to be patient, but make sure you're aligned with the things that you value most, even in your stock portfolio. Are you supporting the companies that align with your values, or are you just blindly letting people manage your funds? Like, this is the time to just reconsider about making some changes. And it could be a friend that shocks you because of some financial drama that they're going through, or a friend that shocks you because maybe they want to invest in you, and that changes everything about your direction in the company, and all kinds of things are possible. But this is Aquarius. It's about being connected with other people. This is also where we could start to see some shocks and surprises as far as the internet, social media. I saw somebody, another astrologer, who came out and said, I'm done with this particular platform and I'm moving over here instead. Like, just suddenly, like, that's the energy that is showing up, where things just suddenly change. People just suddenly change their mind, change direction. This could be electricity that suddenly is abruptly cut off. Like, there's just this unknown element that begins with this week. And in your own life, you just want to be flexible. Don't overcommit to anything in these next 2 weeks. Expect change, expect the unexpected, and just go with the flow. Because if you try to exert control over anything or anyone right now, it is not going to end well. So I don't recommend that. But I do recommend that you become just very flexible, tune into your intuition, because again, the moon's pretty active as it's moving towards its new moon moment. Here, it does speak in harmony with Uranus in Taurus, where it likes to be, versus being controlled here by Saturn in Capricorn. But there's something to that energy today that if you do pay attention to it, it's going to guide you to the things that you need to break free from and the changes that you need to make. So that is a Saturday. And then we wrap up the week with that square between the sun and Uranus being exact. So the sun's only going to move forward, another degree before the 17th, which is the date of the new moon solar eclipse. So this is the intensity. This is the shocking moment that makes you let go of the thing, the work, whatever you're supposed to eclipse out of your life. This is where it's showing up. And then you get a couple of days, actually you have a couple of weeks before the full moon lunar eclipse, to finish letting this go, to unraveling yourself from the situation. Now, those with this 27-degree energy are going to feel this more intensely, but a square means you're at a stop. I have to stop and change direction. So whatever these houses are, this 28-degree Aquarius, this 27-degree Taurus, that's where the conflict exists that requires you to make a change. Now, helping you figure it out, helping you become aware of what that means, what that looks like going forward, is this connection between Jupiter and Mercury in Pisces. And remember, Mercury's giving you the preview of the work you have to do in the retrograde, and that gets clearer for you, and it's based on the past because Jupiter's retrograde, the work that you have to do. So it's so important over this week that you journal and make note of whatever's coming up, random thoughts, things that seem just so unrealistic. Write them all down, because it might mean more to you later. You might connect the dots later, and you just don't want to miss it. You don't want to make it harder on yourself than it needs to be. So don't tune out, even if it's stressful, this energy this week. Stay engaged. And when we're in the flow and willing to move off of something that we're like a scratched record, it just keeps going and you can't quite get the words out. Don't stay stuck. Use this energy, use these conflicts, use this frustration to move yourself on in some way. And then the work becomes easier. Remember, the eclipses are fate. So what's going to happen is going to happen. And then your response to whatever happens, that's your free will. But you don't have control over the thing that's going to happen, that's going to shock you, that's going to surprise you. Maybe that's something amazing and innovative that shows up. Maybe you inherit some money that you had no idea you left at a former company, or anything's possible. But you got to show up and do the work, because that's what fate helps us do, is to grow and learn through life and living. And we can't do that if we're hiding underneath a rock somewhere thinking with that we can avoid fate. We cannot. So that's just a lovely way for us to end the week. And then we're going to look at next week. And that's where, of course, things are going to get a little interesting and a little wild, because that, as I mentioned, new moon solar eclipse happens in the sign of Aquarius at 28 degrees. It's squaring to Uranus, while ruler of Taurus and that Uranus square is Venus, and she's jockeying with the nodes. So, like I said, this is fate. This is women that are in charge of the lessons that we are about to learn. Topics of money and beauty and love and our material things are all a part of the work that we're about to do at the time of this solar eclipse. And of course, you'll want to come back next week so that I can break it all down for you. But if you want to get an early preview, go read on my website, MaraleeBurnett.com, the article for February, and of course the solar eclipse article. And there's a little brief preview of what could be possible, what your new beginning could be if you're willing to break free from something very specific that's going on. So again, just fun, intense energy that's showing up. And then next week too, it's the Chinese New Year at the time of the eclipse, which will kick off the fire horse year. And for those like me, born in the summer of 66, you're having your fire horse year return. So you've done all the things over the last 60 years. You've taken off. It's been difficult for people to try to hold you back. And that's not stopping anytime soon. And this is just the next chapter of your adventures. And so get ready for some intensity and that fire within to be lit for those of you born during that era. I'm looking forward to some big adventures in the year ahead. I'm planning to use the energy to get myself moving and get out there. So what are you planning? What are you hoping to move forward or get moving in your life? Well, this eclipse energy is combined with the beginning of that fire horse energy. So it's time to light the fire within. And the house where you have this solar eclipse is giving you a clue of where that fire can burn the brightest. So if you are wanting to know more, book a session with me so that we can break it down and look at how these energies in these next several weeks are showing up for you. Where are they showing up for you? How can you show up and meet the energy and create the necessary changes? That's what I do for you. So thanks so much for tuning in, liking, commenting, sharing my work, and coming back week after week. I know it's a small, mighty group of you, but I really appreciate your support because I do this just for you, just because this is my passion, guiding you on this journey. So if you think somebody else could use a little guidance, share my work with them. And again, make sure you come out to my website, maraleeburnett.com, and get all the free resources that you can possibly get out there to help you prepare for a year where everything's about to change. This is a new cycle. It's a 1 year. It's new beginnings. And the new is uncomfortable because we were used to that 9-year stuff and we were hanging on for dear life. But that's going by the wayside. And this is where things really begin to amp up and kick off. So, like I said, let me know what's going on in your journey. I thank you so much for tuning in today. And we'll be back to talk about the eclipse next week with a breakdown for your sign and a little nudge towards what it is that you have to break free from in order to start something new. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week.